What phone are you using right now?
Big question. So I've been flicking between Android and iPhone for quite a long time, and ultimately I've settled on this.
Kids nowadays want to become content creators. Like when we were kids, it used to be astronaut or, sports star or something. There is definitely a part of me that goes, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea what this takes.
Honestly, I am burnt out most days of the week currently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you ever consider moving to America?
Yes.
Do you think American YouTubers are the highest earning YouTubers in the world?
I'd be very surprised if they're not. When I go into a store and I see Prime, I just think to myself, damn, that started in someone's bedroom. It's crazy.
What kind of conversations do you have with other YouTubers?
I'm most curious to know, how happy are you? Do you wake up with a smile on your face? Do you think, oh, I'm so lucky to do what I do? The general answer is actually no.
Yeah. What's up in your love life?
Well, I just got married.
You met on a dating app?
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought that dating apps would have existed when we were in school?
It's amazing, to be honest.
We want kids.
Every time I meet someone who's to ask them, was it a good decision? Are you happy with it? Obviously, there's a slight problem. There's always a heavy bias of, I can't say it was a bad decision.
What advice would you give the 25-year-old version of you?
Have you ever watched that Steve Jobs speech where he talks about connecting the dots backwards? You just have to trust that the dots will line up, and they do.
I'm going to keep this intro short and simple. For me, this podcast was definitely an episode with one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, known as Mr. Who's the Boss. But moreover, for me, this was an episode with Arun, the person behind Mr. Who's the Boss. Just a very real late 20s, early 30s kind of conversation about life, about social media, about careers, about wants and wishes, about the process of dealing with ambition. If you're someone in this age group, you're going to find a lot of value in this episode. But I think if you're someone who's followed the rise of Mr. Who's the Boss, you're going to see a very different side of him in today's episode of The Ranveer Show. This was a very organic, very fun conversation. I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Arun bhai, what's up? How's it going?
I'm having the time of my life, to be honest. This is the busiest, but also the best. This is a peak moment for us.
This phase of your life?
Yeah.
For you and your partner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, gorgeous house. The most gorgeous thing about it is the peace here. There's so much peace.
The sound just disappears.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
Well, I guess, so like I was saying, there's two sides to me. There's a side to me that seeks peace, and there's a side to me that is wildly ambitious. And those two sides are constantly fighting with each other. And so I have yet again ended up in a situation where I'm trying to have peace to really enjoy this process in this house. But I have scheduled in, or I've actually committed to making one video every single weekend about each room that we're kitting out. And so we are so busy right now. We're working every day till 11 p.m. This is the chillest I've been in probably 5 weeks.
Yeah. I understand the working till late part.
Yeah.
Especially for you, because I've always felt that tech is one of those unlimited genres on YouTube. I think that, at least in India, so many genres have come and gone.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't even know if podcasting will be relevant 3 or 4 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always felt like tech will always be relevant. And it's that one opportunity in the world of YouTube globally to build anything you ever want. So if someone's deeply ambitious and they're a YouTuber, tech is a great place to be.
I'm so grateful that I ended up in tech because it does a lot of the work for you. Even if I had no creative vision, there's still going to be new iPhones, there's still going to be new Samsungs, there's still going to be new AI developments. And so all I'd need to do is hypothetically talk about those things, and that's still useful for people. The part of myself that doesn't help is the fact that I am wildly ambitious. So.
What's the end goal?
I think my end goal is balance. I think life is best enjoyed when you're doing hard things, but then you're doing easy things straight after those hard things. And for a long time, I'd say I haven't had a very good balance. And, even if in small moments I make it easier for myself, that ambitious part of me just swoops in. Because, like you say, the sky is the limit. And when you combine sky is the limit with ambitious personality, you end up making things really difficult for yourself.
Do you see that with a lot of the YouTubers you end up meeting or content creators in general?
Yeah, so I think all the ones who are at the top don't take the easy options. They like obsess over their content in ways that I think a lot of the audience often doesn't even realize what's been done to create that feeling. So I'd say creating a great YouTube video, especially with like 2024 standards, is really tough, as you know.
2024 standards.
Yeah. You know what I mean, though, don't you?
I think what you mean is the element of short content just being present
Mm-hmm.
and affecting global psychology so deeply that now all long form content either has to cater to that short form oriented mind or heal it. It's one of the
said
two.
it better than I would have, yeah.
I mean, that was my kind of nervousness about the world of podcasts when short content took off.
Mm-hmm.
I assumed that, hey, will people even listen to long form anymore? And in India, that was in 2021 roughly, or 2020, the end of 2020. Um, but turns out that people kind of wanted a slowing down in pace through this kind of long form content.
So I guess I wonder if the existence of so much short form content has meant that if someone decides they don't want short form, then they're specifically seeking really long form content.
Yeah.
So the kind of middle ground of like 5-minute YouTube videos has disappeared, and it's split into 1-minute shorts and 20-minute plus podcasts and sit down chat.
The way I tend to look at these kind of situations is, hey, what do I feel like doing? And there's a lot of points in my day where I open up short content. That's how I found your channel as well.
Oh,
Because I think you're one of the most skilled short form creators in the world. You're definitely one of the skilled long form creators as well. But the way you did short form affected global short form content.
high praise, but okay, thank you.
Like we have maybe like that time we had like a 30% team back in India. We have an 80% team right now. And when we were figuring how to do short form content, Aki had shown us your stuff and said that, hey, this is also another way of doing it. And now I see so many people copying that style globally. So I think that you have shifted something in the global short form content space.
What is that, out of curiosity?
The effort, the
Making something that's bespokely designed to be short.
yeah, and I mean, I think you've mastered the art of retaining audiences through like effort. It's very high effort content, like the way you think through your visuals, the way you do your font. Like if one knows how to create content, they look at your content and just clap for you, honestly, because it's too much effort.
Right, yeah, so it's quite a high barrier for anyone to do without having the know-how.
I think it's admirable. At least in India, YouTubing has more or less just turned into podcasts. No one's no one's doing too much other stuff. Few of the tech guys are doing it, few of the vloggers are doing it. There's a big comedy show, like kind of like in a roast format that's doing really well in India by Samay
Yeah.
Raina. But that's about it.
So everyone else just sits and chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I personally like watching curated content because in my mind, you're getting more value per second almost out of that.
Yeah.
I watch things that are highly edited, that have been scripted, or podcasts that are really carefully designed because they get the nuances out of people that you really want.
Yeah. In the 5 to 10 minute zone, you'll watch that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'd say my perfect video is a topic I'm interested in, 20 minutes long, very polished, which is actually what we make. So adds up.
Yeah, I can think of like one Indian YouTuber, Think School, who's doing that. He does it with business case studies. I do see power in that 20-minute piece. Actually, there's a couple of newscasters as well. Mid form content has just become this highly curated, lots of information packed into great writing, backed with like evidence and all that. That's the third version of content that I think is alive. But it's primarily short, long, and a bit of this.
And so, what do you think to that Indian scene? The Indian YouTuber scene? You know how you're saying it's changing?
Bro, I mean, we run a talent management firm as well.
Yeah.
And we can't get not too many of the younger people. I won't say any, but not too many of the younger creators are motivated about doing anything other than short form content because it pays you really well.
Really?
Yeah. you're getting paid really well because of your brand deals. And it's lower effort than taking on that YouTube beast. I do feel if you end up growing YouTube, everything else grows. Doing a great long form video will easily teach you short form content, but just doing short form content for a living won't make you a great long form creator.
That's definitely true. I feel like YouTube long form has become the final boss of content that everyone kind of aims for, but is the hardest one to conquer.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
feel YouTube culture is dying in the UK?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Because I feel it's dying in India. And I hate saying that.
I think you're right in the sense that when I was growing up with YouTube, there used to be so many meetups. There used to be there used to be a YouTube studio and they'd actually host events and
Yeah.
things like that.
Same.
And I think it's dead now. I don't think it happens.
Also, short form content really took off during the lockdown.
Yeah. I wonder if now there's so many creators that it's really hard to host people and build a community. Like just the logistics of it alone make it tough.
Because you might be accused of favoritism.
Yeah, that
Like,
too.
as in, YouTube might be accused of it.
Yeah, and also I remember in the UK they used to tier it based on subscribers. Like certain events you could come to if you had so many subscribers, which is like on one hand, yeah, not great for people who have less than that, but also now everyone has so many subscribers and short form subscribers. Does that count the same as long form subscribers? And it's messy.
Yeah, valid. Very valid point.
Hmm.
I would love to see that YouTuber culture return globally, though.
I agree. I agree. Just the feeling of like having people who understand,
Yeah.
if nothing else.
Did you ever go around life telling people that you're a YouTuber?
No, probably the opposite. I was actually really embarrassed at the start because my videos weren't good. My videos weren't good, and there was at the time when I was at school, it was like you didn't want to be a nerd, and my videos were definitely in nerd territory.
Yeah.
So, no, I remember I showed one of my closest friends when my video got like 5,000 views, and he was just like, "That's not you. That can't be you. No way."
You'd rather just not tell people.
Yeah, there was probably a point somewhere in university when I'd been doing it for like 6, 7 years where I was like, okay, I'm actually quite proud of this. But I mean, to be honest, when you say to people like I'm a YouTuber, most of them just are like, oh, he's probably got like 4 subscribers and 2 of them are his parents. Like,
In India nowadays, I don't hear anyone saying I'm a YouTuber. Everyone says I do content for a living. And I actually feel, I mean, and I don't like saying this because I was one of the first like early YouTubers in our country, but most people are just focusing on Instagram in India right now. I don't know how I feel about that, honestly.
so people are saying they're not YouTubers because they're embarrassed or because
It's not a thing. I don't hear anyone saying, "Oh, I'm a YouTuber. I do YouTube for a living." It's just content creation and it's very platform agnostic. Right now, Instagram is popping, so people are talking about. No one says I'm an Instagrammer. My point is that early on, there was a lot of value in saying that I'm a YouTuber in India.
do you think Instagram is popping in India specifically? Because I'm not sure I could say the same about like what I've seen in for US YouTubers and things like that.
TikTok is banned in India. That's why Instagram is popping even more. But TikTok was huge in India when it was there.
Yes, that
Because
makes
of
sense.
geopolitical reasons, it got banned. And I think all of the short form content creators that make money are on Instagram.
And they make money mostly through sponsorships.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah.
Right. Okay.
And it's enough money in India to buy you a very luxurious life. Like even if you're at like 100K, 200K Instagram followers in India, you'll get brand deals to get you through. I know creators who are washed up, who were big YouTubers back in the day, don't get more than 2,000 to 3,000 likes on each post, but are still earning 5 to 6 lakhs a month in India, which is not bad at all.
But okay, you're just saying that I guess advertisers want to spend on Instagram content right now.
Yeah, I mean, advertisers are moving away from television and traditional forms of marketing. So the general content creator economy is growing rapidly in India. Do you speak to YouTubers who've stopped YouTubing in the UK?
I've spoken to lots of YouTubers who I've known since quite early. Most of them are in the stage right now where they're trying to build businesses. So they're less focused on their channels because, to be fair, most of them have been doing it for 10 plus years. So you want a new challenge and they have the resources to do so and they have the platform that makes it easy enough to build businesses on.
When you're saying they don't focus on their channel, you mean they've reduced frequency heavily?
Yeah, reduced upload frequency in favor of trying to channel their audience to something that they've made. Because it makes sense, because on YouTube, you don't really own your audiences. You can earn them, and they're following you in so much as YouTube pushes your videos onto their feeds, but that's so far out of your control that you're not very secure.
How do you go from this not having secured your audience to securing your audience?
It's something I'm still trying to figure out. To be honest, we have spent probably 6 to 7 years trying to figure out what the next step is for the channel. The channel will be a priority for a very long time, if not forever. But how to build a business beyond that is way harder than it seems.
No one understands that.
It's like, it's easy for me to decide tomorrow I'm going to release merch, right? And I'm going to get a load of t-shirts, I'm going to print my name on them, and that's on sale. That's the Mr. Who's the Boss product. If you have an ambitious mindset and you want it to be good, we're not product companies, right? We have not spent 10, 15 years honing the craft of building a perfect product. We don't have factories, we don't have the people we need. So to do something better than a company that's been doing it for 10 years and has factories in China and all these processes is practically impossible. And so what you need to do is to find like the perfect synergy with another company who already has those capabilities, and then use your channel as effectively like a marketing engine. But you have to find something that you love. And I have said countless times, I will not make a product until I find something that I'm just obsessed with. And that has yet to come.
Can we break this chapter down a little bit
Yeah.
in detail?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. So let's rewind. I think you started in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, roughly.
Yeah.
I started in about 2015. At that point, YouTubing was just about understanding the craft of videos, enjoying it, putting it out, assuming that this is going to blow up at some point, and there'll be a day in the future, maybe in the distant future, where you'll be sitting with a YouTuber in his beautiful house in the UK and just having a great conversation about monetizing further. But even monetization was a dream that was far off back then. And then the first wave of monetization in my eyes was influencer marketing, at least for India. I'm assuming that in the Western part of the world, AdSense is also a strong form of revenue.
Yeah.
But in India, in truth, you only make that AdSense money a strong form of revenue 5 years in, 6 years in, because it's not that much money initially. And then you have a shot at like making it grow. So the influencer marketing was the big chunk. I do believe that influencer marketing is still growing in India for sure. I assume globally as well.
Yeah.
You'd say that? Money's going up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like kind of linear growth. And if a YouTuber has sustained their career for longer than 5 years, chances are that that human being is deeply ambitious. And chances are that that deeply ambitious human being is not okay with linear growth. Which is why the steady progression is to jump from linear growth to exponential growth. Which is why this conversation about launching products.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to pause me here and add anything to this?
Well, I'm totally with you on the idea of like the ambitious person doesn't just want linear growth, because that's what, like, I guess you'd be working at a company if that's what you're after. I suppose for me, it's not been about money particularly. It's more actually about growth, because that's really fun. It's like this fun challenge to try and complete.
But how would you define growth?
It's a good question. I suppose when I was starting out the channel, growth was subscribers. And that's all I actually cared about. I was never looking at paychecks. I just I want to make the biggest channel possible, because if it's big, that's a sign people like the videos and I'm improving at my craft. As it got further and further, the subscribers stopped mattering. I think both in the sense that literally they don't matter, because if you have more subscribers, your videos don't get more views. But also, it's so many now that 21 million versus 20 million doesn't have an impact on your life. And so my goal now is actually to reduce the time that I spend making content without reducing the quality of the content. So I actually want to create more peace in my own life while actually still being ambitious with this channel, but just micro-optimizing the little things to achieve that.
So your definition of growth is a life that contains more balance.
Yes.
Right? And if things can still keep going up, great. Nothing like it. Fair to say?
Yeah, spot on.
Okay. And that's what you're tuning things towards.
Yeah, yes. So, like, things like giving more responsibility to people in our team such that I have to worry about less things. I was saying recently I'm doing 11 p.m. nights back to back. I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to feel like I have to do that.
My main gauge for success is my ability to create jobs on a very like fundamental level. This is something Nusair and myself have spoken about. Like he once told me that he thinks that the most noble thing you can do in life is to give another human being a job. And he says that because he grew up in a refugee camp.
Mm.
I think I say that because I've grown up around all sorts of Indians, really rich Indians, really poor Indians as well. And you often look at the people who are below you in terms of money and try figuring how to pass them the ball and teaching them how to shoot.
Hmm. Do you think it's almost like the best form of, is it like a charity you see it as?
Yeah, there's definitely some spiritual angle to this in
Mm.
terms of adding kindness, goodness, growth to the world.
Mm.
But it keeps me going and it's kept me going. Over like 9 years, we've created like 400 jobs directly. We have a talent management firm as well. Talents we're managing have their own ecosystems.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure directly or indirectly, I'm affecting about 600 or 700 Indian lives. And it doesn't seem like enough.
Wow.
I just feel like,
So this is your sub quest.
yes, I wouldn't say side quest, but it's a quest on a deeper level beyond the cameras, mics, and podcasts.
Mm-hmm. So your goals are revenue based so that they can trickle down into
Yeah.
these 600
Yeah.
plus people that you're impacting.
Like I don't really want a Ferrari or
I see.
anything, like, but I do want to be able to create a dent in like the Indian story. But coming back to the content creator
Yeah.
arc, because we were talking about products, this is the same as having that conversation about monetizing your community, that you've built out this community on YouTube. How do you truly turn that audience into yours? And I believe that the practical way to do it is, one, have more information about your community through newsletters, be in touch with them much more. Assume that YouTube shuts tomorrow. How do you still reach out to the 10 or 20 million people?
Mm-hmm.
Solve for that. But another way of looking at it is creating products, and those products have their own communities inbuilt.
How have you managed to do that? You're saying this idea of if YouTube were to disappear, you're still in touch with that community. What have you done to get around that?
Over the course of the last 9 years, I've realized that a YouTuber has to go from just doing influencer marketing to building something else.
Mm.
So my first experiment with the world of business was at talent management firm. And I learned how media organizations work, how service oriented businesses work. But in 2020, we began working on a meditation app. It's more a mind performance app with meditation as a key part of it.
Mm.
And we've barely raised any money on that. We've raised very little money, but it's been growing steadily. We talk about it in a lot of our spiritual videos. The top comment is like about the app. It's slow and steady growth. But the thing is, I've realized over the last 9 years that slow and steady growth on anything is actually healthy, because that community is actually into the product.
I agree. Same thing for YouTube channels. Like a viral video doesn't make a successful channel. It's the slow and steady is a sign that you're getting a little bit better each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My overarching point here is like
Yeah.
products.
Right.
What are you thinking
So
about?
we have thought a lot about products. There's things I can talk about and there's things I can't talk about.
Yeah,
But
that's
like
fine.
we've thought about books, and we've actually got to the stage of like we've written draft pages, for example. We've very nearly started a podcast with another top tech YouTuber. And we even got to the stage of filming draft episodes, but everything's been scrapped.
Why?
Because it's got to hit the life goals. I was saying earlier, I'm seeking some sort of peace.
Right.
So for the podcast, for example, we got so far with it because technically I should make a podcast. I've got a lot to say. People like my voice.
You have a beautiful voice, brother.
Thank you. But yeah, so I've been told by so many people a sensible business decision is to make a podcast, but it doesn't align with that North Star of like reducing the time I spend filming and still having the same output, if not a better output. That's actually committing myself to kind of what you're doing, which is, I don't envy it, to be honest. But the biggest thing, the biggest barrier for me has been the kind of the perfectionist. And that's been okay with YouTube. I've got to a stage where I'm like, I think our videos are really good. And at the point where we post them, I'm completely happy that that's the best we could have done on that. With something as complex as a product, and with as little expertise as I have making products, it's much harder to get to that stage where I'm like, I'm completely happy with this. It's good to go. It's also when you've never done it, you kind of build up the anticipation for it. Like the audience is so ready to judge whatever I potentially put out, and I want it to deliver on that.
Yeah. Can I share my experience on the app? Because I think it'll add value to you as well.
Yeah.
Gamifying the process of growth was the goal. So we called it level. And then eventually we realized that in order to gamify anything, you do need hardware. So that's what scared me at that exact same point. So we started to focus much more on software and just made it about the mind. And that turned out to be something that the audiences wanted as well. Now, all this happened over the course of a couple of years where the one thing I had to sacrifice was my work life balance, where I had to do extra meetings. I had to give this product time as well. But today, like 4 years on, it's growing steadily thanks to three things I did right in my own eyes. One was having the right partners. The second was training the right team members really well. And the third was giving the audiences exactly what they wanted through a slow process.
Does it still occupy any part of your headspace today?
No.
Okay, so
Which
that
is the
work's been done.
best case scenario for me. But those couple of years of giving it extra time stretched me too thin and took a lot out of me. At one point, my partners kind of said that, hey, you know what? Now you've given time to this product. So you just need to focus on your fame, your distribution, and keep getting more famous and talking about it more. And that's it. So the app's called Level Superman, and I don't talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
But I talk about it enough to just trickle down the audience to that app. So I feel I've answered that question in my own case in a tiny way about taking your community and turning it into something monetizable. But now, parallelly, the YouTuber in me really enjoys this process.
Yeah.
And I know that this is not the last product I'm going to build. So as long as you have love for video, I think there's always an opportunity to build more products.
We do have one thing that we're potentially working on. I can't, and I don't really want to say anything right now about it, but I'm excited.
Yeah.
I guess I can say that it involves the perfect synergy of us doing what we're good at and another company doing what they're good at.
Nice.
Yeah.
When I see another YouTuber building something beyond videos, it's inspirational and it's something I want to like cheer for. You know, do you feel that when you see other YouTubers doing it?
Knowing how difficult it is, yes. And, you know, when I go into a store and I see Prime on the shelves, I just think to myself, damn, that started in someone's bedroom. It's crazy. So absolutely. And same for, you know, Feastables and all these other products that have transcended those barriers.
Yeah. I sometimes wonder how the American guys do it this well. That's one of the questions I have.
Building businesses.
So easily.
Well, I've met some of their teams and I can say that like they're definitely hiring experts. And I wonder if when you get to a channel that size, you can afford to just outpay other YouTubers and people. So you can just take the best people and retain them.
Do you think American YouTubers are the highest earning YouTubers in the world?
I'd be very surprised if they're not.
Right? We have Tech Burner in India. He's in your genre.
Yeah.
He launched his own watch recently, smartwatch. The moment I saw that smartwatch, I gave him a hug. Like I met him. I was just happy for him.
No, I would love actually just to see it and use it because I've got 1,000 questions. All I know is how hard it is for that to happen. Like my entire job is basically making sure products are good and advising people whether or not to buy them. So I see so much come through these doors and most of it is not good enough for most people, if that makes sense. So I'd be curious, you know, if he wants to send one over, feel free. And I won't hold back. But I'm curious what the end product is like because I know how hard it is.
Yeah. How does it feel turning old just a little bit? We're almost the same age.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You know, getting the first grays.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's a whole other...
I feel very satisfied, to be honest, with life. Like, I feel like I'm very lucky that I have managed to do a lot before I'm old. You know, I think I've got to experience some of the luxuries that people have to normally wait till they're old to do. And so at this stage in life, I can think about things that often like I wouldn't have ever expected I'd have the luxury to think about. Things like just being able to plan my time. Like I said earlier, I'm so ambitious that I don't make it easy for myself. But the fact that the option is on the table to make it easy for myself is amazing. I could choose to work 2 hours a day and still live an awesome life.
Have you ever spoken to content creators who've completely left the game because they've just made enough money and they're completely satiated?
Um, Kind of, yes. I've seen people move from normal jobs to content creation after having some success. And because their reference point is, I can earn this much from a job or I can earn this much from content creation, they actually decide to work 2 hours a day and just live the life while earning what they would have earned. So that is one way of doing it. But I think more often than not, the people who rise to the top are the people who are like, wow, there's an opportunity on the table here. I'm going to run with it.
Would you want to take your channel to 100 million subs?
I would say probably not, because I think my quality of life would not change. And I think in attaching myself to a number that really I don't have a massive amount of control over, it would just stress me out for no reason.
Really?
I think so.
Do you think you would have said that about 20 million subscribers when you were at 10 subscribers?
I mean, when I was at 10 subscribers, I was like, 10,000 is the dream. If I hit 10,000 subscribers, I've made it.
But there's no vision for when you want to stop, because I remember being asked about this in year one. Someone said that, when are you going to do YouTube till? And I said about 7 million subscribers.
7? Who stops at 7?
I don't know, bro. At that time, 7 seemed like a very large number. I remember Superwoman at that point was at 7, and
Yeah.
that seemed way too far-fetched.
I think every YouTuber has a point where they decide, okay, I've done enough. But I don't think it makes sense, especially in this day and age, to tie that to subscribers. Because it's just not, in my mind, it's just not a useful metric.
Yeah, it
And
used to be.
It used to be. But I think it helps me especially to tie my success to things that are in my control. Because as soon as you put them outside of your control, what do you do about them? You know, like if I set my goals as 20 million subscribers and then, you know, let's say my editor quits, what can I do? You know,
When you speak to other YouTubers from Britain or America, does everyone have a different idea of success? Because in my eyes, in India at least, it's mostly about money. That's what I've gauged. Or cracking a Bollywood film, which has not happened yet.
I know that there's still differences. So like when I talk to Jimmy, Mr. Beast, for example,
Yeah.
he's obsessed with creating the biggest channel. So he is kind of like almost growth at all costs mentality.
Yeah.
Whereas there are many YouTubers I've met who are more similar to me in the UK and US who are like, it's more about the lifestyle.
Ali Abdal?
Ali Abdal is interesting. I think he's traveling, he's in Hong Kong or something. He's moved home, which is something I would not want to do because I'm very tied to family here. But it seems like he's happy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you've talked to him more recently.
No, I mean, I last spoke to him about a year ago. But I think knowing the little bit that I know about him, he seems to be built in this mold of like seeking work-life balance rather than just like the aggressive monetary growth.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like you were saying to me earlier that you hit burnout like 4 or 5 times per year.
Yeah.
My goal, if you ask me what my actual vision is, I would love to never hit burnout ever again. That would be success in my eyes.
Would you say that the last couple of years were your most intense years work-wise?
Yes.
So how often did you burn out in those intense years?
Honestly, like you could say I am burnt out most days of the week currently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even now?
Even now.
But how do you define a burnout?
It's feeling like I think oftentimes for the last couple of years I've woken up with like a pit in my stomach. And it's like I just feel like persistently on edge. And I think it's this feeling of I've taken on too much, but then I continue to take on too much because the opportunities are so great. And so I'm really craving a feeling of like settling down, a little bit of peace.
So you'd say that burnout feels like it riles up something inside your head. The anger and strife is much more present, like on the surface, because you're overworked.
Yeah, I think I'm overworked, but it's of my own choosing.
I think any YouTuber that's overworked, it's always because of their own
Well,
choosing,
yeah, true.
right?
Yeah.
Because we end up signing up for bullshit we don't need to sign up for.
Yeah. And it's great. Like, I can't complain about it because it's the opportunities are so good.
Yeah.
But it's like there's these weird situations where sometimes a great opportunity can make you a little bit less happy because you'd feel stupid for not taking it.
Yeah.
And that happens so much to me, I'd say.
And we've worked for years to get till this point.
Yeah.
If you end up rejecting that opportunity, there's some past version of yourself that's going to go like, no, dude,
Yeah.
do it. What are you doing?
100%, that's it. Yeah, so I guess decision regret exists a lot. You know, I was saying earlier about things being out of your control, actually. It's just occurred to me an example of that. So when we got this place, we were like, okay, this is actually a chance to make a once in a lifetime piece of content that has never really existed on YouTube, which is one person starting with an empty house and building a dream version of every single room as a weekly series. And so immediately we were like, okay, we're doing this. Let's plan it out. Not realizing that the construction, like the actual physical hardware that needs to be built by joinery people and stuff like that, takes way longer than they told us it would take.
Yeah.
So we're still committing to our weekly timelines while other things are all spilling over. If I say I'm only happy if this weekly series happens when I've said it happens, I'm not happy because it won't, because
There's things that are out of your control, which there's no way for you to get a hold of.
yeah.
But you've still promised it to your subscribers.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they're your bosses. So
Yeah. So there's like, I feel like I've done this enough times to learn the lesson to stop putting control into the hands of other people. I want to take control of my life and only pin myself to the things that I can choose to do.
yeah. Did you ever consider moving to America?
Yes. Especially, you know, with tech, America is a really good place to be.
Like Silicon Valley?
Silicon Valley is not all that great, actually. Like, it's actually kind of dead for what's meant to be the hub of the world, or at least it feels that way whenever I go.
I probably think moving to America is one of the best things that content creators can do for their career if they have a game plan. That's what I assume. I don't know. I don't have experience.
I think you're right, and I've seen it work really well. I've got a friend who moved from Philippines to New York, and all of a sudden having American contacts, getting products with American timing, starting to get the CPM of an American YouTuber was all really good.
What kind of content was this?
Tech,
Okay.
yeah.
But the tech CPM varies that much even though you're speaking in English.
I think so, yeah.
Really? Let's dive a little bit into this, okay? Because there's a lot of people that I know in India who are thinking of moving abroad generally. And I'd probably say that that's true for the world as well. We're in one of the most migratory phases of human history. I was reading this article on it. I would assume that if you are in London, you have a shot at growing in America as well.
Yes, I'd say that's fair. I think Americans particularly love British accents, which also helps.
But let's break this down a little more.
Yeah.
You were talking about your friend who moved from the Philippines to America and revenue went up basically. Is he enjoying the process of being in America?
I'd say I haven't talked to him in enough detail to say for sure, but I think so. I think he's having a really good time.
So why did you not end up moving?
I guess for me, I didn't move to America because I am happy with my life here. So Drisha and I, when we got engaged, we started to plan out what our life goals were. Number one was make sure we have the happiest life possible. Pretty obvious goal. Number two was make sure our family has the happiest life possible. Number three was make sure our friends have the happiest life possible. So there's that kind of like spillover effect. So as soon as we feel like we have enough, we need to make sure our family has enough, and then spills over into friends. So
On a human level, you're still more focused on the work-life balance thing.
yeah.
That's effectively why you didn't move.
Yeah, and it's also just I am very attached to my family, and my family is also very attached to me. So there is no way I can be living my best life if I'm, 5,000 miles away from them.
And by family, you also mean parents.
Yeah, parents, brother, sister. Yeah.
I'll tell you what my goal is.
Mhm.
Definitely don't want to move out in India permanently. I might have a phase where I live outside of India, but I'll want to be there. And until that phase arrives, I intend on traveling a lot all over the world, recording podcasts in Singapore, Dubai, UK, America, Brazil. Ideally, I'd like to go to far off places like Nigeria, Argentina, places like that, and record podcasts as
Does
well.
this count as travel for you? You know, when you come and you do podcasts, because you're not seeing the outside world, and it's not a holiday.
I didn't have an answer for that until this trip.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you what happens. So the three of us, they're brothers, but they're also like my brothers, and we've worked together for so long
Mm-hmm.
that our team chemistry is through the roof,
Mm-hmm.
and we have roles on these trips. So we always slot out 2 or 3 hours in any day where we will go and do something in the city. And this whole trip, it's been like a 10, 11 day vacation, whatever, shoot trip, I don't know, where we've only had a couple of days free, but I have not felt burnt out on any level. And right before coming to the UK, I was actually burnt out shooting podcasts in India. And I thought that I'll have to muster up a lot of
Mm-hmm.
energy to shoot podcasts here. But while I'm here, I'm energized naturally because I've realized that on a fundamental level, I travel for the sake of meeting new human beings and learning new perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm just having to do that with cameras and mics. So for me, it's been great, and I think I'll be able to do this regularly. I feel recharged enough to go to India tomorrow, which I am doing, and recording podcasts from day after.
So I've got a question for you then. So for me, shooting videos is quite exhausting. And that's because I care so much about the content that I am the on camera presence, but I'm also the director. So, how much in this moment are you thinking about what the content looks like? Or are you just having a conversation?
At this point, just the conversation.
Okay,
But I don't enjoy the period before a podcast.
right.
Getting my hair done, outfit, all
Mm-hmm.
this shit, I don't enjoy.
Mm.
Um, Talking to the person, I live for this shit.
Mm.
So this doesn't feel like work for me. It energizes me a little bit almost. Like I feel a higher energy level if I have a great guest, which happens in like 90-95% of the guests'
Mm.
cases because we select people very carefully.
So then I guess I can see why you've energized yourself in this crammed period, right?
And I've realized that that's the advantage of living in India a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
that you can have large, very capable teams. I don't think that that's a culture in the Western part of the world in
Interesting.
general.
That's
I think
interesting.
it's a little bit of the culture in America.
I think you're spot on. Yeah. I think, the fact that this set was ready to go pretty much before you arrived is like amazing. But yeah, labor is very expensive here, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
And so the willingness of people to do things is maybe a little lower.
Yeah.
And also physical work. Ever since COVID, people want to work remotely.
Hmm.
So while Drisha and I love the idea of building a team that's here every day and we can like chat and banter and get a really good chemistry going like you have, it's just not a desirable work environment. We've actually worked with freelancers out of India, and to be honest, we've always been really impressed with the quality of work.
Yeah.
So I'm totally with you. And to be honest, even for us, it might make sense to hire in India for some things. Like editing, for example, is very outsourceable.
What kind of conversations do you have with other YouTubers? Because when I meet other content creators and YouTubers,
Hmm.
it's usually us bouncing between, hey, what's the future of what we're doing? What are your end goals? How's your mental health?
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. I think the question I'm most curious to know from other YouTubers is like, how happy are you
Yeah.
day to day?
Yeah.
Do you wake up with a smile on your face? Do you think, oh, I'm so lucky to do what I do? The general answer is actually no.
No.
Yeah. Which is amazing. That's amazing.
All over the world.
Yeah. It's funny that, isn't it? But like, gratitude is I think the most powerful thing anyone can like learn to practice. And I do this every single day without fail, is just like tell myself 5 things I'm grateful for. Let's go. And usually I do it with Drisha, just before bed. It's the antidote to dissatisfaction.
Antidote to dissatisfaction.
Hmm.
I think one needs to be a little dissatisfied to go about YouTubing.
You think?
On a fundamental level, the human being has to be a little dissatisfied.
You're right. I mean, I definitely was. Like, I was not having a good time in my life when I started YouTube. Was that the same for you?
Yeah. A lot of alcohol, a lot of pot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. To fill that
Okay.
to fill that void.
Yeah.
And then I think this gave me an alternative high, like an alternative option to get high.
Mm-hmm.
Just creativity, seeing your thoughts turn into words, seeing those words turn into visuals. That whole process is something that um, you can't compare with even like the monetary benefits of YouTubing.
And it really is a high, isn't it? Like watching a channel grow, watching a channel that's your face and your name grow for the first time is almost like it's lightning in a bottle. And
Mm.
like, I got some advice from my business advisor recently. I was telling him, having a bit of a tough time with the channel, probably about a year ago. Views were slowing down. It was that post-COVID slump kind of thing. And he was saying, a great business is not one that can have explosive growth. You've had your time for explosive growth, and you should never try and like chase that again for the same business. A great business is one that can sail through the storms. It's one that can
Mm.
still be profitable all the time without needing that.
Nice. A great business is one that can sail through the storms
Mm-hmm.
because bad phases are going to hit everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You
Mm.
cannot and you should not chase that initial electrifying feeling, which is what I was trying to do.
Hmm.
Because that's come and gone, and I'm so lucky that it happened.
Yeah. There's this whole narrative about kids nowadays wanting to become content creators.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's supposedly the most dreamt about job in the
Yeah,
world.
I've seen
Like
this.
when we were kids, it used to be astronaut or, sports star or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposedly become content creator for a lot of kids now. And when I hear that narrative, there is definitely a part of me that goes, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea what this takes,
It's hard, isn't it?
right? And you don't know what you're trying to sign up for. But I guess I've spoken to athletes, politicians, actors. I think there's a price to pay in any fame oriented field.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's what all of us as YouTubers are fundamentally sad about on some level, that we're so out there.
So when you say fame-oriented field, you think there's something about the fame that makes it difficult?
I think your failures are very public.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard part of this job. Your mistakes are very public. You're very scrutinized. And if you, at least for me, this is a struggle. We're going like layers deep here.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge I face from a mental and emotional perspective is, if I stop tomorrow, how will my shit be remembered? And on some level, I know that it'll be remembered well.
Mm-hmm.
But will there be narratives like, I've gone broke, how will my family feel? Which is all bullshit. I know that that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just this weird, fucked up voice in my head that's saying these things.
So legacy is a big thing that plays on your mind.
Honestly, I don't think so. But there's some part of me that will feel deeply uncomfortable with stopping. But legacy is not something I'm chasing consciously.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm chasing it subconsciously. I don't know.
So I I have the same fear as you, but for a very different reason. For me, it's more like I'm scared to stop because then I'm at the mercy of algorithms. And if you even stop making videos for like 2 weeks, that's enough time for people to get out of the habit of interacting with your channel.
Hmm.
And so there's this persistent fear, and that's why we've never stopped. I've never actually taken a break since 2011, basically.
Hmm.
So I would love to, but I can't see myself doing it in the near future.
The same element of fear, this little globule of fear inside YouTubers'
Hmm.
heads, is what leads to global sadness in the YouTube community. I think every YouTuber feels this on some deeper level.
Hmm.
That will I lose my relevance?
Yeah.
That's the sentence.
Or like, yeah, say the wrong thing once or
Hmm.
make one mistake. And yeah. But I also know what you mean about you're talking about being a bit sad when you have to put yourself out there. And I remember I was talking to someone who was a therapist, and they were saying to me that like one of the biggest mistakes people can make is tying their self-worth to what other people think. And this is that on an absolutely, a ridiculous scale. You're putting your self-worth into the hands of millions and millions of people. And so you have to become very strong to not let their judgment take you down.
Do you think we're highlighting the sadness aspect of this job a little too much? It's kind of a nice job as well.
It's a perfect job. It's a dream job. We are our biggest problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the fundamental reasons for happiness that I have in this job is, when I was a kid, I tried drawing a lot,
Hmm.
and I was pretty shit at drawing because I had a lot of visuals in my own head and I couldn't express it through my hands.
Same, but I was quite good at drawing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For me, I just get to be able to draw in front of the world and go, hey, I made this look. That's,
There's a creative itch, isn't there?
yeah.
I remember at school, everyone told me, don't take art, because I was academically driven, and with academic subjects, you could guarantee you'd get the highest grades. But I took it anyway. I took it because I'm like, this is fun.
Right?
And I think if I wasn't doing this job, I'd have found a way to get that creative itch through something.
Do you think that that's where the story of your YouTubing journey began? In that art room?
Oh, maybe. Although to be honest, I've been art inclined since I was probably like 2, 3 years old. Like I'd wake mum up at 5 a.m. in the morning and be like, "Mom, look, I drew a dinosaur. Come look at it." So I think it's been happening for a very long time. And you know, like when I was growing up, my family and most of my friends would spend a lot of time watching TV. I'd never watch TV. I'd sit on my little windowsill and I'd build models out of blue tack. You know, the thing that you used to stick things on walls. Yeah, that was my toy.
Yeah, because there needs to be an outlet for creative expression.
Hmm.
So while we're talking about all these other aspects that this job brings, fundamentally speaking, the positive is this aspect
Hmm.
that you get to be a kid for the rest of your life on some level.
Yeah. Especially in what we do, we just test fun, silly gadgets and ride around on little electric scooters.
Do you want to talk a little bit about gadgets? Not touched upon it yet. How do you feel when you look at a phone right now?
That's actually a really loaded question. Okay, so there was a phase in my life where I would be buzzing when I knew there was a phone waiting for me at home. Like I'd be in the car on the way back from school or something, and I'd be like, "How long? Come on, we're stuck in traffic. Come on, let's go. Let's drive faster." So I can get home and open up this new package that I know is waiting. I have to say now, it is work. You know, a new phone comes in, and I think, actually, that's my next 3 days gone, or my next week gone. You know, depends on what I'm planning on doing with it. So phones is actually a really good question because it's the thing that has specifically gone from fun to work. And it's not fun anymore. I do it because I think I'm good at it and I can distill down what people need to know about something. But I've reviewed so many phones now that it is a process.
Are we going to be using these kind of phones in the next 10 years?
I think so. The reason things aren't changing very much in the last few years is because it's really good. Is because we've got to a form factor that is perfectly easy to hold. The battery lasts all day. You can consume your content. You can use your social apps. Yes, one day we might wear glasses, but you've seen like Apple's Vision Pro. It's a long way off. And people don't like it. Like, you know, the number of times virtual reality has attempted to dominate the living room and has failed because it's such an isolating experience that is uncomfortable to wear is countless.
And I believe that what's stopping it from being cracked right now is that it hurts your eyes.
I think the bigger thing is more the making it seamless. You know, like there's something so beautiful about a phone that you can put away and then you can take out. And I think people actually really value that interaction that you have with that form factor.
You're saying that the eye strain and weight problem will be solved, but the minimalism problem is what actually needs to be solved.
Yeah, and also the applications. Like an AR headset is worth it if there's something that that you really want to do in it that you can't already do.
So I really feel like, you know how short content just changed everything up?
Yeah,
Would you say it was like the J curve moment of your career as well?
the J-curve moment.
J curve.
Oh, short form content. We got lucky because we got on it early. And I think we got on it at a time where it was quite nascent and we got good at it quite quickly. So it was massive in terms of awareness for our channel. It didn't make us much income, and that's completely fine because we had long form for that. But the number of like, especially young kids who came up to me and like, I watch your shorts, they didn't even know we made longs.
Yeah. I mean, in 9 years of being a content creator, I don't remember any other moment in this 9 year timeline where things changed up so drastically, other than short form becoming mainstream. And the only other reality that I think could be similar is when AR and VR become budget friendly, minimal, don't create eye strain. I think that that's going to change the nature of social media.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that feel crazy that I don't doubt will become a thing. You know, like, for example, the idea of virtual clothing, virtual decor. I have no doubt that that will become prized possessions. You know, actually, just 2 weeks ago, no, let's rewind. So for my entire life, I've been collecting Pokemon cards, the physical cards, right? And a couple of weeks ago, they released the digital version of that app, and it's brought me so much joy cracking open digital packs to collect digital cards that are added to a digital album, and it makes no sense. So
Because people our age are the first generation who experienced NFTs or this NFT type scenario and
Yeah.
still understand and appreciate it because we played a lot of video games when we were younger.
Oh, you think it's a video game thing?
Yeah, subconsciously speaking.
I could see it.
Like opening up packs in video games, etc.
hmm
Do you, so all in all, do you see a big change in phones once virtual reality and AR become a thing?
I would see it kind of like the iPhone home button. So you know that, like, after Apple removed the home button, they kept home button phones around for quite a long time because there's a big part of society that just liked it and was comfortable with it. So at the point where AR and VR kicks off, phones won't disappear. There'll be a lot of people that are really attached to that form factor and prefer it. And then there'll be those at the very cutting edge who want the latest, is my
Okay.
prediction.
Okay. What phone are you using right now?
Using an iPhone 16 Pro Max.
And why do you use this phone?
That's the big question. So I've been flicking between Android and iPhone for quite a long time, and ultimately I've settled on this being my main phone, even while I test other phones now, because I love my MacBook. I love it so much. I think it's so efficient. The battery life is crazy, and Final Cut Pro, sort of Apple's editing program, is just well done. And so when you kind of work backwards from that, using an Android phone does nothing for my day-to-day life that this doesn't. It just makes my life more difficult, basically. So I love, like, there's certain Android phones like Vivo, which is really popular in India. I find their cameras amazing. I find them exciting. I love taking photos with them. So sometimes I will keep a Vivo with me while I've got the iPhone, but it never really makes sense to not keep this with me if I'm a Mac user.
So the ecosystem won you over.
Ultimately, yeah. I'm a little bit fed up of having half my photo album in Android phones, half my photo album in iPhones. It's just like they've made it really annoying to jump between ecosystems.
Do you see Apple fading away in any degree over the next 10 to 20 years?
No, I think Apple has positioned themselves in a very careful way. They're a premium brand, right? They're a premium, desirable brand. And they specifically, like, never even put themselves on sale, unlike every other phone company. And that protects that brand image, that an Apple product is worth what an Apple product is worth. That works really well in a world of rising incomes, growing middle class. So I think they're only posed to grow.
Have you studied Steve Jobs enough?
I'd say I understand who he was as a character.
If Steve Jobs was alive over the last decade or so, how would Apple be different?
It's a really tough question because it's hard to see how Apple could have evolved in any different way to how they've evolved now. But they may have done things in different orders. Like Steve Jobs, for example, was very opposed to styluses, whereas, you know, the iPads now have an Apple Pencil. And the original complaint of Steve Jobs is, like, you gotta, like, put them somewhere and they fall off or something like that. And he said yuck, like he thought it was gross, the idea. And he was right. Like, I still think the way that Apple has the Apple Pencil and it kind of magnetically clips on, but then it falls off half the time, that original complaint he had still has not been solved. So I think he had a point, and he might have decided, actually, I'm not going to introduce a stylus until we've fixed that problem.
Based on the little that I've read about him and understood about him, considering that we're talking about AR, VR, AI, these kind of things, and considering the fact that he always innovated in terms of hardware, like he brought an iPod, he brought an iPhone, before that he brought the iMac, all that. I think he'd be cooking up a new physical hardware product that we are not able to think about right now.
There's a chance. I also, though, I wouldn't overestimate how much one guy can do, in the sense of, like, he was a visionary. He could have great ideas, but Apple is also tied to the technology available in the world. to some extent. And, they kind of have this reputation as a company who actually does things second a lot of the time. So while they had this incredible moment with the first iPhone, I'm not sure that Steve Jobs being alive now would put Apple in this position where they're 1,000 leagues ahead of everyone else and their AI is super polished and can do things that no one else can do. Because in the end, like Apple phones still use Samsung chips. And
But even back in the 80s and 90s, they did things second.
there was a lot of innovation. It was a different world then. I feel like we're reaching a world where a lot of this tech is more standardized. And companies, they're all improving by, 10 to 30% each year, and they're kind of growing in the same direction. iPhones and Androids have actually become more similar over the last, 10 years.
Gotcha.
Because Android looks at Apple and they're like, oh, that's a great feature, I'll take that, and vice versa.
Is there a company that sticks out in terms of being the most futuristic in your eyes, that actually tries to innovate?
There's companies that try to be different, like Nothing. You've seen Nothing? I think they've had really good
We've
growth.
had Carl on the show.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah. And from what I understand, they've had really good growth in India.
Yeah.
But I don't yet see that as much more than novelty. I think it's cool. It makes me want to try their things, but it's not a new technological breakthrough. It's an interesting way to use LEDs on the back of your phone. So there will be breakthroughs, but so far I haven't seen them.
But generally, do you look at the Chinese technology companies as doing anything vastly different from the Western companies or the non-China companies?
Well, it seems like consumer tech feels like it's becoming quite divided, geopolitically as well. Huawei, for example, falling out of the global arms race has actually, I would say, slowed things down a little bit because you can tell Samsung isn't scared anymore. And so, this is something I talk about in my best smartphones video where I'm covering this stuff, but it feels like Samsung is being quite lazy. And the same is true for Apple as well, because Apple doesn't feel challenged by Samsung. Samsung doesn't feel challenged by Huawei and any other Chinese company because they're all finding it really hard to enter Europe.
Okay. Now, in the first part of this episode, I got to know your psychology and I've understood how work-life balance oriented you are. Do the apps that you use on your phone reflect that same part of psychology?
The apps I use on my phone, I have to say, have trimmed down over the last few years.
Currently, what's your most used app?
Probably YouTube.
For consuming content?
Yeah, enjoyment. Yeah, I don't consume tech content because that feels like work. I just like to watch mostly gaming stuff, to be honest.
Yeah.
And, if I tell myself, the way I see it is watching content can be a bit of a trap. Like if you kind of don't even think about what you're doing and you're like, oh, my phone's here, I'm just going to pick it up. I'm just going to scroll for a little bit without any real agenda, you can waste time.
Do you end up using a lot of short content?
No, I don't massively. But where I was going with that is if you're purposeful about it, if I decide, actually, I've got 10 minutes, I'm going to give myself a 10-minute break by doing something, then I think it's really valuable time. I think you can learn stuff, you're going to gain stuff to talk about with other people. You can actually become a much better person in not a lot of time because of how concise content's got it.
Okay, I'll tell you my perspective on this.
Yeah.
I open up my short content feeds when I need to kill time because I know I'm not going to remember what I'm watching.
Why do you feel like you ever need to kill time?
Like if I'm in a long car ride, which happens a lot in Mumbai, and I'm like, shit, don't want anything to think about. I'll just open up a short content feed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that makes you think you won't remember the people you see.
I think time passes by really fast when you're using short content. You forget about it very soon. And there's an excess of it. Like, again, for any content creator just starting out, I'd say that not longer than 1 year should be dedicated to short content only.
Would you even recommend people start with shorts?
In India, yeah. Because it can be a very good place to understand what human beings want, which is actually a very fundamental skill in content creation. You need to know what people want to watch.
Spot on.
You can quickly learn that through short content.
No, I actually agree. It's what I would say to people too. It's like the feedback loop is so quick, isn't it? Like the time for creation versus like a long form piece of content. Plus, easier to do.
Yeah, but I mean, people have to challenge themselves. They have to get into long form content. Like, I think in the last 5 years, I can think of like 3 new Indian YouTubers who've like come through, which is not good. I'm sure there's more,
Mm.
but there's 3 that have reached like the mainstream, which is really not a good, scenario. Like, I don't know how many new iconic long form creators do you know from the last like 3-4 years?
Not many. But I suppose it feels like a tougher environment for long form because there's that kind of almost ever present threat of short form just being around. I noticed long form views decrease as soon as it was split with shorts, which makes complete sense on YouTube.
Is
And
gaming the subject that you're the most passionate about for fun?
yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. What do you play usually?
So I play like COD, I play Pokemon games when they come out. I
like
actually have a
like Ruby and Sapphire and all.
Yeah, do you know what? Like one of my like fondest memories as a child was a birthday the year that game came out. My mum bought it and
Pokemon
Pokemon
Sapphire.
Sapphire, and I
Ah.
put it under my pillow up until 12, and I kind of woke up and I took it out and I played all night.
There was something that changed in your mind if you played Pokemon Sapphire as a kid. I don't know what it is. You kind of, I think you become more mission oriented or something. There's a lot that my mind and heart have gained from gaming as a kid, but I'm just not able to put my finger on what.
Yeah,
Maybe it's just becoming very mission oriented.
it could be. Yeah, giving your life some sort of structure.
What do you mean?
Well, like sometimes I see things as quests, the same way you would in a game, and personal progression as like character progression.
Right. Right.
And I think it can be a fun way of doing things. That's what I loved actually about the Apple Watch. But the 3 bands, the kind of iconic
Yeah.
three rings it gives you. I just find that amazing because I'm like, I feel like I am a character in a game, and it's fun. But coming back to the conversation, so I think more recently, as I've got busier, I've kind of veered on the side of watching games as opposed to playing games because most modern games, I'd love to be able to sit down and play them, but they're massive. They're massive, and like I keep finding like a day where I'm like, I'm gonna play a game, but then if you leave a game for like any more than a few days, it's so overwhelming to get back into
Yeah.
it.
You mean like Red Dead Redemption and these
Things
kind
like
of
that.
games? Very elaborate, too much to do.
Too much to do, and a lot of it's like filler content. It's just like because open worlds are such a big thing now. It's like here's an open world. It's filled with a million different things to do, and only like 4 of them have any meaning.
So you're playing COD and Pokemon games mainly now.
Yeah, to be fair, so we've just set up a cinema room downstairs, and it's been like a childhood dream of mine, that room, because it's got these like extendable screens that come down from the ceiling
Wow.
for co-op gaming in the
Right.
same room. So I feel like we're just scratching the surface of what we can use that for. And that's really fun. But yeah, it's only been simple games for a while.
Do you play with your partner?
Yeah.
She plays as well.
Yeah.
Dream scenario.
Right? Dream scenario. Yeah. It's literally, if you could have said to child me, what do you want in a wife? Plays video games with me.
I tried getting my girl to play some games.
Mm-hmm.
She's getting better. I think FIFA has gotten way more complicated now. It's difficult to teach someone how to play
Right.
FIFA.
Mm-hmm.
But I played this insane 2-player co-op game, which is actually more difficult than it seems. It's called
It Takes Two.
It Takes Two.
Yeah.
Have you played it?
It's a great game for people who aren't gamers.
Yeah.
So I can see that bridging the gap. But the great thing about Drisha is she's very competitive. So if I say this is an opportunity to beat me at something, so actually you see that board over there, that is what we two compete on things. So that board is a record of every game we've ever played together
Wow.
since moving in, and the blue pins are my wins, the pink pins are her wins.
Wow.
I could see it being really cool for like a situation where you're like, I want to do something that makes me healthy. This is a fun way of making me healthy. For times where you want to sit and you want to chill and you want to do nothing, I actually think there's a strong staying power for a controller and not an AR setup. I'm testing a controller that actually turns into a gun. It's like, so it's a controller like this, and then you kind of swivel it round, and you can control games like this.
But it points to the exact part of the screen?
Yeah, that kind of thing. And some part of me is thinking, well, this is cool, but why? Why would I want to play my games like this when I can play like this comfortably with my hands not straining, like, and my wrists not bent out of shape, and I'm going to look like an idiot in public if I don't get arrested.
I was very excited when the Wii had come out when we were
Oh yeah,
younger.
that was cool.
I think we were about 14, 15 when it
Hmm.
had come out. And it used to have some workout oriented stuff.
Yeah,
And I'd really enjoyed it back then. So I always assumed that the Wii would evolve a lot, but I don't know why they never made like a sequel to the Wii.
they kind of did because the Switch still has the same core principles. Have you seen how the
Yeah,
controllers
yeah,
detach
yeah.
and it's still got motion baked in? And I think Nintendo, because of how successful the Wii was, will not go away from that motion tech. So I
Hmm.
think they'll always have that baked into their consoles.
Is it popular here? Because I don't think it's very popular in India.
The impression I get is that console gaming in general is not popular in
Yeah,
India. It's
it's a
mobile gaming.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's really popular here.
Hmm.
Here in America, I think it's the biggest.
Really?
Yeah.
Switch.
Well, the Switch, the PlayStation, the
Oh,
Xbox, all of
okay,
it.
okay.
Although actually
Gotcha.
less so Xbox this generation.
Hmm.
Separate conversation.
Hmm. I met Drish right now.
Yeah.
You said you met on a dating app?
Hmm.
Who would have thought that dating apps would have existed when we were in school?
Yeah.
And they've become such a useful part of human society at this stage.
Well, I just got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's gone to the number one priority part of your head.
Yeah. It's amazing to be honest. Like we get to spend all hours of every single day together because we work together, we live together, we're married together. We could probably carve out more time for dates and things like that because that's kind of slipped a little bit,
Hmm.
but we're having the time of our lives.
Hmm. Easy working together?
Mostly, yeah. We have differences in the way we work because she's come from a very corporate background. I've come from a YouTube background, which is like has no structure at all. But that's kind of good because then she takes on the tasks that need that structure.
Right.
You know, she creates Notion templates and big Slack messages with bullet points and stuff. And
Hmm.
I just used to say to people, yeah, why don't you try doing this on Monday? And then if that doesn't work, then maybe do this on Tuesday. She's got a plan.
Yeah. I say this about my partner to my friends. I say that if she wasn't there, I think my mental health would have been
Something like that.
Yeah, along
Yeah.
the same lines.
Well, yeah, so before she joined the company, we did a little tally of like what I spend my time doing. And it was like 88 hours a week is what we worked it out to of work time consistently. That was like just a normal average week, 88 hours. So she's brought that down now to something like 60.
But just making things more efficient.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's a singer called Pratik Kuhad. He makes these really romantic songs in India. And I spoke to him about relationships once. And he's also an artist. He's also cut from the same cloth where we're talking about sadness so much and self harm inside the head.
Mm.
And he said that when you're in a stable relationship, your insecurities reduce automatically
Oh, I have had that. Yeah.
because you're just a little bit more confident in yourself because
Mm.
of the greatness of your partner. And often in those phases where you've completely hit that barrier of insecurity or self doubt, your partner pulls you out. But when you're single, you don't have anyone pull you out
Mm.
because there's something that a partner can do which a therapist can't do. There's a lot of things that therapists can do that your partner can't do, but there's some things that only your partner can do.
And you've noticed that in yourself. Your insecurities kind of disappearing.
Yeah, I don't think about them so much. She reminds me of who I am.
Mm. Yeah, I think you're spot on, to be honest. Yeah, there's so many things. They seem so silly when you look back on them, don't they? That you used to worry about, that you just don't later on. I feel like most adults go through that kind of transition period. And then they tell their kids it doesn't matter, but they don't understand that it does in those moments.
I think that that's one of the most beautiful things about having a stable relationship.
Mm.
Your mental health benefits on many levels.
And why is that? Because they take off some of that workload, or because they remind you it's okay, even if you don't have success in the
I
traditional sense?
I have my own relationship theory.
Yeah.
I think the best relationships are where the guy finds a bit of a mom and the girl finds a bit of a dad. You can't expect the person to be a complete dad or a complete mom,
Hmm.
but you need that little daddying or mommying from your partner.
Yeah. That's what I've heard the same thing expressed many different ways, but it always boils down to that. Yeah.
Right? I guess that's what a relationship turns into, man, in the long term. Like it first turns into friendship and then it also turns into a bit of this.
Yeah. There's something really nice, I suppose, about being able to look after someone wholly and completely and know that that's coming back without any kind of said expectation, isn't it?
Do you want kids?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why do you want kids?
Um, I've actually, so it's something I've thought about a lot, to the point where every time I meet someone who's had kids, I tend to find a way to ask them, like, was it a good decision? Are you happy with it? Obviously, there's a slight problem because you don't get a clear answer. There's always a heavy bias of, I can't say it was a bad decision. But through those conversations, you start to get a picture that the older you get, the more value you get out of having made the decision to have kids when you were younger. And
Wow.
the older you get, the younger you wish you'd had those kids.
Why is that?
Because the kind of balance in you putting in time, effort, money into raising those kids and the reward you get from them seems to just shift and shift and shift more in your favor
As you age.
as you age. But if you have those kids, like let's say you were 40, for example, you're going to get way less of that time where you're benefiting net positive than if you had them at 30. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the effective call to action here is have kids early.
Even if it feels tough, yeah, and you don't want to because you feel like you're giving up such a great young life.
How do you feel about those 18 to 22 years that you're going to have to dedicate to the kids? Because I think as good dads and moms, you'll end up giving the best parts of yourself to the kids.
Mm,
And until now, we're giving the best parts of ourselves to our YouTube channels.
that that is an interesting thought. I think it would have to be efficiently planned in the sense of like deciding what are the most important points to be there for the child, and then not sacrificing the things that we decide don't matter as much. Like, let's say waking up in the middle of the night to change nappies, try and get some help with those things so that you can have really good quality time when that kid is really, taking it in.
Hmm.
But, something's got to give. Like, at the point where we have kids, I'm sure content will slow down a bit and we'll have to be okay with that.
Arun Bhai, almost at the end of the episode,
Hmm.
I have a few final questions for you. Okay. And you can make this as short as you want. And if you want to elaborate, you can elaborate as
Mm.
well. You're 29 now,
Yeah.
right? What advice would you give the 25-year-old version of you? Not 22.
I think the key thing is don't worry about it. If I think back, every single thing I have ever worried about has been fine. It's have you ever watched that Steve Jobs speech where he talks about connecting the dots backwards? I think about that so often.
Hmm.
And you just have to trust that the dots will line up, and they do.
What about advice for the 21-year-old version of you back in college?
To be honest, I think I did university pretty well. Like, I actually have no regrets about, because I managed to get really good friends. Like, I have a group of 14 of us, and we just have the best time. I got a first class honors, and that's where I kicked off this YouTube channel properly. So, like, when I look back at my university career, I'm just so glad that it worked out. And
What if you had a 21-year-old brother today or sister?
okay, I think it's the same thing. I think like there's an element of like I have been lucky. My parents are healthy, my brother, sister are healthy, I'm healthy, partner's healthy, but we're easy to worry. Do you know what I mean? Like we wake up in the morning and we're anxious about one thing or another persistently. It's just like, have you ever heard of the idea of like, will it matter in a day? Will it matter in a week? Will it matter in a month? You have. So that I think about that a lot nowadays because even when it feels like the biggest things are happening, like recently someone threatened us with like a copyright strike on our channel. And obviously that has quite wide implications. You can lose monetization, your video gets taken down, you've got a sponsor agreement that's then contracted for that video that's being taken down. But then we did this whole process. Will it matter in a day? Yeah, probably. Will it matter in a week? Not so much. Will it matter in a month? No, we'll probably find it funny. Okay, well then, let's find it funny now.
Gotcha.
Hmm.
So apply that to life.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, it doesn't matter what age you are because everyone at every stage worries about something when growing up. And everyone who's slightly past that age can look at that age and the things you're worrying about at that age and say it doesn't matter. But you have to go through that journey to see it.
Arun bhai,
Mm-hmm.
this has been a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Agenda-less, free-flowing. Glad to have met you in life.
Likewise.
Bro, lots
Pleasure.
of fun, man. Just glad to have come across you in the UK. I was looking forward to this particular episode very heavily. I think people know this about you through your content, because I often feel like the content becomes a reflection of the content creator's heart and mind. But you're one of the most chilled out, positive energy people I've come across in the field of content. And you and your clean heart just come through. But honestly, I think that's what people have picked up through the episode as well. You're just a good guy, and I think that's why life rewards you. So all the best, man. Like,
Appreciate it.
glad to see the peace in your house and your life, even though this whole conversation has been about things that take away from one's peace.
Yeah.
It's been good to meet you and good to get to know you.
Likewise.
Okay, thank you, bro. I feel like podcasts with YouTubers very often become about the process of YouTubing and social media and the technicalities of these subjects. But today it was just an emotional, real conversation between two men. I enjoyed creating this one very deeply. And in our entire UK tour of TRS, this was one of the days I was looking forward to the most, for the sake of the realism that the conversation would provide. And that's exactly what it provided. Very memorable, very easygoing conversation with Arun Bhai, who features on TRS.